In a quiet American town, dozens of children vanished without a trace. Even the FBI had no answers until one little girl returned home, saved by a police officer who died a year ago. But if the man who rescued her was already dead, then who brought her back? This is the haunting mystery of a ghostly cop, a father's dark deal, and a town cursed by the sins of the living and the dead. This is the story of Jim, the ghost officer. At the start of this film, we are shown a small town in America where many children have suddenly gone missing. The police and even the FBI can't find any trace of them. Then we see a man named William sitting inside a cafe finishing his coffee. He buys a cake for someone, gets into his shabby van, and drives out of town into the woods to a farm. There, we discover that William has locked up a little girl named Grace. We learn that the missing children from town were actually kidnapped by William. William starts giving Grace the cake. But just then, a police officer named Jim appears, sneaks up behind William, strangles him, and kills him. After that, Jim puts Grace into William's van and returns her to her home. Grace's dad, Edward, is overjoyed to see his daughter alive, because until now Edward believed his daughter was gone forever. Edward immediately calls the case officer, Meady, and tells her, "My daughter is back." The news shocks Meady. Meady tells Edward not to change Grace's clothes or bathe her, because they need samples. "Bring Grace to the hospital right away. I'll meet you there," she says. Edward rushes Grace to the hospital where she is examined. Afterward, Meady asks Grace some questions. She asks, "Who took you? How did you escape?" Grace tells them a police officer rescued her. Meady asks Chris for the name of that officer. Grace answers that she doesn't know his name, but that the officer killed the bad man and drove her home in that same van. Meady asks Grace what the van looks like. Grace says they can go and see it. The van is still parked outside their house. Hearing this, Meady and her team get alert and immediately head to Edward's house. Meady and her team still don't want to accept that the person who returned Grace is a cop. They suspect it might be a kidnapper's trick. They search the van thoroughly, but find no evidence. So Meady traces the van's license plate to William's farm and takes her team there. They find William's dead body. Meady sends the body for post-mortem. But a big question remains. Who was the police officer who saved Grace? And how did he know she was there? During investigation, Meady learns that William's wife and children are dead, buried somewhere on his own farm. When Meady hears this, she orders her team to search the farm, and soon they find William's wife's grave. What's horrifying is that next to William's wife they find the bodies of many children, which makes it clear the missing kids from town were murdered by William. Only Grace survived. Now Meady thinks the case is solved. All that remains is to find the officer who rescued Grace. So she calls Edward and asks him to bring Grace to the police headquarters. Edward initially refuses, but Meady convinces him, and the next morning he brings Grace to Meady. Meady shows Grace photos of all the police officers in town. Shockingly, none of them is the man who rescued Grace. Meady grows more disturbed. She begins to suspect the person who returned Grace is not a cop at all, but the kidnapper himself, leaving Grace on purpose so the police would follow her lead and pin the abductions on William. To lift Grace's spirits, Meady takes her to the same cafe where William bought the cake. As they finish breakfast and are about to leave, Grace sees a photo of Jim. She tells Meady, "That's the officer who saved me." Meady's face goes pale. Jim died a year ago. Edward tells Meady, "Now that Grace has identified him, why don't you find him and question him?" Meady insists Grace must be mistaken. Jim was killed in that very cafe a year earlier. Edward is stunned and begins to doubt whether his daughter is confused. We then see the cafe owner, whose expression makes it clear he knows more than he's saying. Edward takes Grace home and puts her to bed, while Meady checks Edward's CCTV footage. On the footage, she sees the van's door open by itself, even though no one is inside the van. Meady is terrified. At that moment, her lights flicker red and strange sounds begin. Frightened, Meady goes down to the basement, and there she sees Jim. Seeing Jim, Meady runs back out and hides in her car. At the same time, Jim also appears beside Grace. One being standing in two places at once. It becomes clear Jim is not human, he's a ghost. Grace tells her dad that the officer who saved her is now sitting in her room. Edward checks Grace's room, and he sees Jim too. Cut to a different scene, we meet Nia and her mom. Nia's mom drops her at school and goes to her office. After class, Nia waits outside school for her mom. Her teacher offers to take her home, but Nia refuses, saying, "My mom is coming for me." Then Nia's mom calls and tells her she's stuck in traffic and suggests Nia walk home if she wants. Nia agrees and starts walking home. A black van pulls up beside Nia, and she is kidnapped. That night, Nia's mom, Sophia, files a report with Meaty. During the investigation, they find Nia had a phone. Meaty asks Sophia if phones were allowed at school. Sophia says she gave Nia the phone only for emergencies, which only she knew about. Meaty tells Sophia she suspects Nia hasn't really been kidnapped. Whoever has her must have known about the phone. Maybe Nia turned it off and is with a friend. Sophia scolds Meaty. "Why are you making so much noise? Many girls have been kidnapped before." Meaty replies that the kidnapper who took those girls died last week. The same man who used to abduct children. "I think you should wait a few more hours. Maybe she'll return," Meaty says. We then see the same black van again. A masked man steps out and brings food to Neha. The Hindi text alternates names. Neha is locked inside a dark room. Meanwhile, Edward's wife returns after many years. She had left Edward years ago. Suddenly things had begun to go well for Edward again, and the reason will be revealed later. Edward tells his daughter not to tell her mother about Jim. Sophia sends a message through the media to the kidnapper, begging, "Please leave my daughter. I'll pay whatever you want." During the investigation, Meaty and her team discover that Nia's registered father's name is different, meaning Sophia left her first husband. Sophia had hidden this fact from Meaty. Meaty confronts Sophia. "Who is Nia's biological father? Why did you hide this?" Sophia reveals everything. Nia's biological father is Dravis. Meaty is stunned because Dravis is the man who killed Jim. Sophia admits she hid Dravis's name because she feared it would compromise the investigation. Meaty tells her that Neha/Nia is not at fault for anything Dravis did. Now Neha and Sophia get tied deeper into the story. Edward's wife apologizes to him for leaving. Edward loves her, so he forgives her and asks where she had been all these years. She tells him that she and a friend had been living out of town and grew close. She fell into a dark addiction while living with that friend. One night, she gave him a pill and he died. She panicked. Then a police officer, who somehow knew her name and address, appeared, handed her a plane ticket, and told her to go to Edward. We now realize Jim was the one who brought Edward's wife back to him. Why was Jim so kind to Edward? The story will explain. Meaty tries to track the black van through every workshop in town but finds nothing. Frustrated, she returns to the cafe with Jim's photo. Meaty asks the owner to tell her exactly what happened the night Jim died. The owner explains that Jim was a regular who worked the night shift. That night Jim went to the restroom without telling him. Suddenly a man with a gun entered the cafe demanding money. The owner handed over cash without fighting. Then Jim quietly approached and tried to catch the robber. But the armed man noticed Jim and shot him. Jim was still alive. If he had been rushed to the hospital in time, he might have survived. The man returned and shot Jim in the face, killing him. The owner watched helplessly. Meaty asks whether the owner ever saw Jim after that night. The owner replies that the question isn't whether he saw Jim. It's whether Meaty believes him. Meaty says she does. The owner then tells her that a few nights later, around 2:30 a.m., while he was cleaning the cafe, he saw Jim sitting in a corner. At first he thought it was his imagination, but when he got closer, he realized it was really Jim. He asked, "You're dead. How are you here?" Jim told him, "I am truly dead. I'm not Jim. I am his spirit." Jim also said he wasn't at peace because his wife never got to see his face one last time due to the killer, and now he would fix everything. Meaty asks if it's possible that Jim was the one who saved Grace. The owner says, "Jim can do anything, but first you have to accept him by taking his hand." Meaty's head reels. She immediately calls Edward to meet. Edward meets her outside his shop, and Meaty tells him what the owner said. Edward replies that the owner is right. Jim can do anything. Meaty then realizes Edward must have seen Jim too. Edward confirms it. The night Grace slept in his room, he saw Jim in the house. Edward thanked Jim for saving Grace, and Jim told him he could do anything for him. Edward asked, "Like what?" Jim replied, "I can bring your daughter's mother back." Edward said she wouldn't come because she's mixed with bad people. Jim said he could do that, but in return Edward would have to accept him. Edward accepted. The next day, Edward's wife returned, and astonishingly, her addictions were gone and she began caring for Grace like a devoted mother. Hearing this, Meaty says she wants to meet Jim too. Maybe Jim can help find Neha. Edward tells her to come to his house at 2:30 a.m. and not to ring the bell. That night, at 2:30, Meaty goes to Edward's house. Jim is waiting for her upstairs. Edward warns that Jim is waiting. Meaty, trembling, goes up, and the scene cuts. The next day, Meaty asks Sophia for Neha's childhood photos. Sophia finds it strange but gives Meaty the photos, desperate to get her child back. Meaty goes to Travis in jail to question him. Then she obtains CCTV footage from a store and gives it to her partner, Parker. The footage shows the black van passing the store every morning at 10 o'clock. The kidnapper comes to Neha again, makes her speak on a phone, and then throws the phone away. Meaty somehow locates Neha and rescues her safely. With the case solved, Meaty is praised. But when they arrive at Neha's home, Travis in jail mysteriously dies. Parker learns Meaty met Travis in jail, but she hid that fact from the team, and Parker begins to suspect Meaty. He digs into Travis's death and finds that Travis killed himself after meeting Meaty. The next day, Parker tests his suspicions by getting into Meaty's car and checking her location history. He discovers Meaty visited where Neha had been a day earlier. Then Parker finds an old photo of Nia in Meaty's car with Meaty's handwriting on the back. "If you want to see your daughter Nia alive, you must destroy yourself." This confirms Parker's doubts, and he confronts Meaty at the cafe. When Meaty arrives, Parker accuses her of colluding with the kidnapper because she already knew where he kept Nia. Meaty tells her side. The whole thing began after Jim's death. Because Jim's wife didn't get closure, Jim returned as a dangerous ghost determined to control the living world and challenge God himself. He started by saving Grace and gaining influence over Edward. Jim took Edward's hand and recited a chant that put Edward under his control. Once Edward was under him, Jim forced the kidnap of Nia, and we learn Edward was the one who orchestrated Nia's abduction. Jim did this to push Travis into killing himself. Then Jim brought Meaty under the same compulsion, forcing her to meet Travis and tell him, "If you want your daughter Nia to live and to atone for your sins, you must end yourself." Travis demanded proof that Nia was with Meaty, and Meaty arranged a phone call. The man who'd called was Travis himself. Travis, convinced his child was alive, killed himself to save her. And with his death, Jim's revenge was fulfilled. Now Jim's only goal is to make the entire world dance to his commands. Parker, skeptical of ghosts and spirits, does not believe these claims. Meaty tells Parker that Jim knows Parker has cancer and that he will die soon. Parker is surprised. He didn't even tell his wife about the diagnosis. Meaty tells him, "Congratulations. Jim has chosen you and cured you. If you don't believe me, get retested. If I'm right, you'll have to accept Jim and let go of your fear." Meaty leaves. Parker goes straight to the hospital and runs every test. The doctors are shocked. Parker's results are normal. There's no sign of cancer. They apologize, thinking a mistake was made or reports got mixed up. Parker is stunned and heads to Edward's house. Edward, Grace, Meaty, and the cafe owner stand there like witnesses. Parker decides to give up his soul to Jim. He surrenders, embraces the ghost, and with that acceptance, the movie ends. Evil never dies. It just finds new believers. If you love dark, supernatural mysteries, and chilling horror thrillers, subscribe to Ghostly Screen before the lights go out.